Thanks, Zoom, for the heads up. So that's the first thing. We ask that you all stay on mute. Certainly, we encourage you to turn on your videos because it's always lovely to see folks' face. And that's about it for housekeeping items. We do this event every quarter since the very start of CodeOp. Why? For the mere fact that there's a lot of myths associated with getting into tech. Women have historically not been encouraged to pursue tech. And so part of our impact strategy, in fact, is to educate women that, hey, this is a career path for you. And here are some of the ways to get there. The style of this event is anecdotal. I'm not here to give you a sales pitch. I'm not here to do a code along with you all. This is not going to be technical. It's really anecdotal. It's focused on hearing from folks who have been in your shoes and who are now working in tech. We do this every quarter, and we always get different folks from within our alumni network, sometimes outside of our alumni network, and from different backgrounds, because it just makes for a richer experience, because everyone's situation is unique. And when you can find someone that has a similar situation and they've done it, it can be particularly inspiring. So that's the idea. In terms of hidden agenda, I really have one goal tonight, and that is to plant some seeds, to light some fires, to get excited about tech, and come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe there's something here, and maybe this is worth looking into. To that, I'll share with you some other events. If you want to start coding, if you want to talk with a career coach, if any of you actually want to have a conversation with any of the speakers or CodeOp staff, please reach out to us on LinkedIn. So I'd like to think that this is the start of a relationship, and really important that you all feel comfortable to taking up space here. This is 100% for you, no? I do want to say, okay, so I'm not going to have a PowerPoint presentation, but I do have 3 slides that I want to share with you to contextualize the event, just to give you a little snapshot of what's going on in the larger context. And this is not my opinion. There are sources here. So let me share my screen. Okay. All right. Let me just, right. Okay. So my 3 slides. So there's this problem about the gender disparity in tech, right? And I think that we're gaining momentum in the fact that people understand it's a problem and they're doing different things about it. The interesting thing here is that this problem of engineering teams not being diverse is a unique problem in the sense that it's a chronic problem worldwide, right? It's not in one particular city, in one particular region, it's across the board. And that's a fact according to OECD, that amongst member states, approximately it's 30% of the tech labor force is made up of women. So we have a lot of work to do there. As I mentioned, there's good work being done on the part of governments. The EU, for example, is scoring member states on how well they're doing on their diversity and inclusion initiatives. There are quotas that have been put in place to get more representation to companies on leadership boards. And there are a lot of corporate initiatives. In the United States, I think they spent approximately, what was it, like millions of money on diversity and inclusion initiatives because, again, it's no longer acceptable to not have diverse engineering teams. So the problem is then, okay, so if we're all agreeing, all aligned that we want to get more women into tech, how do we do it? Because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen randomly. It takes time to develop these skills. And so one of the efficient methods to supplement the tech talent pool has been these things called coding boot camps, right? Something in between a university degree and learning on your own. It's an efficient method that's been around since 2010, starting first in the United States. And obviously there's coding boot camps all around the world now because it works. The problem, however, is that there's not a lot of coding boot camps out there that are just focused solely on women. And we think that's what needs to happen to really reach gender parity in tech. So this is the one statistic I'm going to share with you. We know that in 2019, there were approximately 26.4 million developers worldwide, 11% of whom were women. And in 2030, we estimate there will be about 45 million developers worldwide. If we're serious about reaching gender parity, it will mean that we need to train an additional 18 million women, 18 million. So all to say that there's a lot of opportunity out there. So just because there's opportunity doesn't mean that it's easy, but it also doesn't mean that it's impossible. And that's what we'll learn today from the speakers. I'm going to stop sharing this. Okay, cool. So, because we've been running this for a while, we've sort of discerned patterns in terms of like common questions that come up. So I've curated these questions and I'm asking on behalf of you all. If you have additional questions, certainly shoot them in the chat and I'll try to incorporate them while we're speaking. So without further ado, let's get into the speakers and I'm going to shut up. We have a super cool group here. So let's see. Maybe we can go around and I'll have you all introduce yourself. And if you could just say your name, where you're from, what industry did you come from? Yeah, let's start there and then we can dig in. So Bea, you're the next person to me. So we'll start with you.
Sure, no problem. So hi everyone, I'm Bea. I'm Italian, from Milan actually. I've seen that someone else is there right now. And now I'm in Barcelona. I've been living here for 5 years. I've actually come here to attend a master in digital marketing, and that was my field. All the working experience I've had until now, it was in that field, different aspects, but always digital marketing, especially paid advertisement. And yeah, that's my background until this year, actually, because I attended the CodeOp bootcamp from January to March.
Super. And then can you say something about your age, if you're parenting?
Sure. I'm 28 and I just try to make myself survive in this world. And yeah, so I've been working in digital marketing for around 3-4 years, more or less. So yeah, that's
super. It. Thanks. Donna, who are you? Where do you come from? What are you doing?
Hi everyone, my name is Donna. My pronouns are, I have no preference, so I use all of them. I'm from New York City. I'm turning 35 this weekend, actually.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm hoping to spend it with some downtime. My background is in equipment management, especially mostly collegiate athletics equipment management, and I studied history and anthropology in university. And I didn't have a tech background before this, and I enjoyed the entire journey, and I hope we get to inspire you today.
Super. Thanks, Donna.
No problem.
Shinara.
Hi, I'm Chinara from Kyrgyzstan, 26. I did tech project management prior to CodeOp for about 3 years. I studied business in my undergrad, and I studied global affairs for my master's in China. Yeah, what else was I supposed to talk about?
Yeah, just what your professional background is, your age, if you're parenting, and where you're from.
Yeah, and I do not have children yet. Yeah.
Super, thanks. Andrea.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Andrea, I'm 27. I'm from Barcelona, and I don't have a specific background to share. I am a sound technician, and I'm in the middle of my physics degree, but I have been working for the last few years as an administrative assistant, so nothing to do with code. And I completed the bootcamp this last year, and on April we finished. And that's it. I'm not a mother either, so that's it.
Super. Andrea, since I have you unmuted, let's start digging.
Sure.
Where did this whole idea of pursuing tech coding come? And when did it happen? What was the catalyst?
So the catalyst was COVID, actually, because I realized how much of a job insecurity I had at the moment. And I realized it was something that I had done before a little bit on my degree, and I enjoyed it. And I thought I could, if I got the right help, I could make a career out of it. So I decided to enroll a bootcamp on the pandemic.
Did you have any fears associated with doing this?
Yeah, a little bit, mostly that I wouldn't have time, or that I wouldn't have enough knowledge to pull it off, especially to get a job. But I took the advantage of everyone being locked in, so I locked myself in too, and it turned out for the good.
Super. So there's a lot of boot camps out there, and this can be daunting to folks. What do I choose? I was there when I decided to pursue data science. How did you go about it? Can you share some insight into your approach?
Sure. I think everyone does the same. Like, you get a list of all the bootcamps you can find, and then you compare them. And I got my final two were CodeOp and another one. And what made me decide was mostly the vision of CodeOp, like being an all women and transgender people bootcamp. I've never been in a community like that, and I really wanted to try. I thought that it was what I was looking for, because I'm a woman looking to transition into tech. So what a better place to learn. And then I got another one that was, I'm not going to say the name, it was a mixed bootcamp, but I didn't choose them because their website didn't scale on mobile. So I thought, not a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely an indicator of something. I'm going to check our website after that. Super, thanks. Shanara, your background is quite different because you were already related to tech, no? So what was really the catalyst for you?
So when I was working as a project manager with the developers, obviously almost all of them were men. And I was like, why is it that girls become project managers and guys are the ones who code? And I thought, I think we girls should actually also challenge ourselves, and it shouldn't be the case that girls study something like related to liberal arts and guys study STEM. So and when I was working with developers, I could see that I have all it takes. Like, there's no difference. You don't have to be a man to code. Like, there's like the job that they did, I knew I could do it too. It's just a matter of gaining the knowledge. So that was really a trigger for me, that I believe I'm equally smart, equally capable, and I'm going to challenge myself and do the same thing.
Yeah, super. I think if you're not involved with tech, if you're not interacting with technical professionals, it's really easy to have your stereotypes in place, right? Which is like, okay, to be in tech, you need to be some rocket scientist. And then if you have friends who are developers or you're working with developers, you realize, hey, maybe you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this work. You start sort of measuring yourself up and comparing. And I certainly had that experience coming from San Francisco. Did you have any fears in pursuing it?
It was really more about at a time, it was a lot of people back home were transitioning into tech, into coding. And I wanted to ask myself, is it an external pressure, or is it an internal drive? Is it because everyone else is studying it right now, or is it something that I actually want to learn on my own? And I was pretty comfortable as a project manager. I was doing well. I was being appreciated, promoted regularly. But I knew that, like, at some point, actually, I reached out to you in 2019, right? So it took me 2 years. I was that comfortable. But 2 years later, I thought I actually stopped growing as a project manager. So maybe this is the right time. And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, I want to have some sort of control over my life in 2020. And there's one area, which is career, that you can do if you put enough effort, you always make it. So that was also a trigger for me partially.
So you waited 2 years to eventually do the program. What was the blocker for you?
As I said, I was pretty comfortable, and I did start a few classes, offline coding classes back home, but I had a lot of business trips. I sometimes I had a lot of work, and I just couldn't combine it. I guess then I thought maybe my intention was external that rather than internal at a time. So I wasn't as ripe for it at a time.
Yeah, makes sense. Donna, I remember our interview. tell us a bit about how you came to make this transition.
I had a lot of doors being closed to me a lot, especially with my background in anthropology and history. There isn't a lot of opportunities with a bachelor's degree in the US, and I didn't have a financial stability, and I was just working whatever job I can get, and I was getting really frustrated. On top of like an academic limitation, unless you have like a master's or PhD, there's no upgrowth or onward of like moving up the economic ladder. And like being a person of color, being non-binary queer, that also limits a lot of the opportunities out there for me. And I didn't want to waste more time going back to school for another degree. I didn't have the money for it, and I wanted something I was passionate about that I can make a big impact on community-wise and give back to the educational environment that gave me so much when I was in school. And I found programming was something I really loved and enjoyed, especially having a little bit of background in HTML in high school. And talking to you just reignited that passion in mine, and I'm happy it gave me that opportunity.
Super. So, I mean, you're based in the United States in one of the most mature bootcamp markets in the world. Amongst coding schools, 1% are focused solely on women. The first one was founded in San Francisco, Hackbread Academy, and they've done great work. And then there's the Grace Hopper program, which is in your neck of the woods. So what the heck brought you to a Barcelona-based program?
So one of the things was costs. It was the more flexible in tuition. It also gave a flexibility in payment. That was the number one thing. The other number one thing, it's kind of like a tie, was the mission statement. I really loved the mission statement that it focused on marginalized and underrepresented people, especially women, trans, non-binary folk, and gender non-conforming. And the other thing was that it gave you a part-time bootcamp that you can do and still allow you that financial flexibility, which no bootcamp was offering at the time. I don't think there aren't that many bootcamps that even still at this point give you that opportunity to study part-time and pay on a flexible plan.
I can relate to that. I have my master's in cultural anthropology, and either you go for a PhD or you do global marketing because you have a sense of cultures. But that in the end was not as intellectually challenging as I wanted to. And I felt a lot of regret when I was like 30 years old, having not gotten into tech, and not just like the privileges associated with getting in tech, but I think the intellectual challenge, the feeling that like I was not using all of my brain in my work and wanting that, really desiring that, feeling envious of this. So I drew it out pursuing tech for a long time. And eventually I did it, but I was scared shitless. Certainly I had also played around with HTML and CSS. But what, Donna, do you think? I mean, did you have some fears about it? I mean, I know that I was quite plagued with, am I going to fail? Do I have the capacity to do this? What happens if I do fail? What will my friends and family think?
Definitely. So in the past, I've always gone back and forth with coding on my own, and I kept running into these blockers where I just didn't progress anywhere, and I didn't go anywhere with it, and I was worried that I was going to hit the same wall if I did boot camp. More than anything, I felt like I wasn't going to finish it, to be honest. And I always had this like stereotype of a programmer, it's like doing it by themselves in the basement or something, and it's like a solo journey. But that was a big surprise. It wasn't.
So you went for it, and did you find that your friends and family were supportive of it?
my friends didn't understand it. It was really hard, but on the brights, like it was fine because I meet new friends who were struggling the same way I was, and we created our own community, and it was the most gratifying experience I could ever explain. Super.
Okay, sorry, this is my last question. Well, I'll ask you that later. Okay, we're gonna mute you. Bea, so I just mentioned that it really feels like yesterday I interviewed you also. I remember it quite well. So what happened? You decided to pursue coding. You'd been doing digital marketing. What was the catalyst? Were you worried? How long had you been thinking about it?
Okay, so as a lot of people actually, because now that I can talk also to people in my company, for example, like the catalyst was definitely COVID for sure. I mean, COVID for me meant losing my job last year and working in digital marketing and in Barcelona. So there is a lot of competition here. And during a major crisis and during summer, it was very difficult to find a job. So that was the catalyst. And then about choosing this path, well, it actually happened quite fast. I mean, at some point around autumn, more or less, I was there like, no, I have to do something with my profile. I have to improve it. I have to change it. I don't know. I have to do something because nothing is working. So I actually had other options in mind. I mean, I was also still considering things in digital marketing. And then at some point, coding came up. I don't know. I actually don't know how. I would just thought, oh, okay, maybe coding. Also because having studied digital marketing, I too had touched HTML and CSS, and I was like, yeah, like it really moved something. Like I was feeling something when I thought about coding, and also what also triggered me a lot was like, yes, I can be a woman and I can code, you know, like actually that was super cool. Like, oh, I can do this and be cooler than I am. So yeah, I mean, I've always looked at my female friends that are working STEM and think, oh, I should have done that. And I've never done that. And this was my actual, like, you know, turnaround to enter in the STEM field. So that was it. And it was November. And I started looking for a bootcamp. And I actually realized that all of them would start in January. So actually, I had to take the decision super fast. So, I mean, I couldn't wait until March and look for a job until March. Now I was like very sudden, actually. I didn't, when I thought about it, I wouldn't think of an option this fast. Actually, I talked with you and about this if starting either in January or April, I remember. And yeah, it was January and I decided to go for it. And as of CodeOp, I actually didn't find CodeOp at first, and I was headed more towards another option. And I had a list of bootcamps, and I contacted several alumni from all of them. And the very first person that answered me was from actually my other first choice that I had. And she told me, just don't go there. I actually work at CodeOp. So CodeOp is a bootcamp for women, gender non-conforming people, and transgender people. And I was there like, excuse me, out there is a bootcamp that is for women and it's gender non-conforming people. So for me, it was just, okay, like say no more. It was actually the first feedback that I had. So it really influenced me. But I mean, I'm grateful that I didn't wait for the others, you know.
Super. I think different stories of what brought you to decide on the boot camp. And sometimes it's just logistics and you have a certain month in which you want to do it and you see what's available. No question, it's always important to reach out to alumni to get feedback. And it will always be mixed, no, but you're looking at the average. So good to get more than one person's review of it. So
also because sometimes like I really wanted to understand more the technical aspects, like what's front and what's back. And so I really needed someone that studied to explain it to me because I didn't know what I was going to do actually. Like I just jumped into it.
That's wild. You just jumped into it. So was there any preparation I mean, right, like a boot camp is a big decision, emotionally, financially, all of the above. No, did you have some trepidation that you had no idea what you were getting yourself into?
Yes, I still do every day, actually, when I go to work. What I understood was that it would have been super intense, and yes, it was intense. But other than that, I didn't, because of I talked to people, actually. I talked to coders, because everyone was like, oh, I know a coder, just I give you his number so you can talk with him or they. And everyone would ask me, okay, but do you like more front end or back end? But why JavaScript? Don't you like something else? And I was like, I have no clue. Like, I don't know. I just know that most of the bootcamps do JavaScript, so I think I'll do JavaScript. So I was quite like, if telling you now, I do realize that I was really unaware of everything. But it was also exciting because, I mean, that was the challenge, to complete change field and start from zero, from scratch, because there's HTML, it's not coding.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge, and it was actually what excited me the most.
Okay, so at some point I'm going to circle back around and have you explain to the crowd what is front end, what is back end, and JavaScript. Okay, I'm going to give you some time to reflect on it. I know you have a lot on your plate these days. Super. Okay, so we say there's like 3 scary periods of doing this, right? The first one is actually making the decision or getting accepted into the boot camp, and you're like, oh shit, I was accepted. This is crazy. And then you're doing the boot camp, you start the boot camp and you're like, oh my God, I'm here. Can I do it? Am I going to make it? Can I learn this material? And then you start feeling a little bit more comfortable. And then you graduate from the boot camp and you're like, oh shit, now I actually have to get a job in tech. Can I actually do it? And you have all this fear associated with that. Then you get the job in tech and you're like, oh shit, am I going to be able to perform? And so it is an uncomfortable journey. I mean, I think everyone would agree here. Changing industry and function is not easy. Okay, so throughout this process, and we can start first with once you started the boot camp and you're learning and you're in the thick of it and you're super busy, either, you're doing it full time and you're inundated with information, or you're doing it part-time and you're inundated with information and you're also working and maybe you also have a family. So there's like a lot going on. Tell us a little bit, Andrea, about your emotional journey throughout the boot camp, just to get a sense of like the reality of it from an emotional perspective, and then we'll complement it with a technical perspective.
Well, from an emotional perspective, at first it was, once I had made the decision, that's it. Like once I was accepted, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try how it goes, see where the level of difficulty is, or what can I handle. And in the middle of the bootcamp, it all comes crashing down. Like there's always a point where you're like, okay, I can't do this. Like this is too much. But it's a really good thing that I ended up here, because the community and the cohort mates were amazing. And we had all this support that I cannot believe that we had it. I really doubt that I would have found it anywhere else. And Donna was with me on the cohort, and we were like super team pushing through. And once you break that barrier, you realize that as you said, it's not rocket science. Like everything is on the internet. The teachers can help you, your cohort mates can help you. Like if you can find the information, you can learn it. And it might take you a little bit longer or a little bit more of intense work. I was working at the same time, so I didn't really have a lot of time. But on the 6 months, all my free time went to coding. And once I knew where I had to look for things and what I needed to do, it was just a matter of time to get it in my brain and start understanding. So that's a great feeling.
Donna, was that also your emotional flow?
Yes, pretty much mirroring it, a bit. Also, there are times like I would hit a wall and I would probably break down so many times when we went through like trees and grass and linked lists, and I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I knew that like it was just part of the process, and I could just reach out to Andrea and to everyone else on CodeOp, and I would be able to like ask someone to kind of walk me through it, because there were times where I just couldn't even figure out like why do I need this, like why am I still here, like I was questioning everything. I just like had that moment, but like once like I calmed down a little bit and realized like I was just panicking, and it's just nothing but that panic, it was fine. And I was able to continue on and just take it one step at a time and break down the problems into smaller problems.
Do you think it was one of the more difficult things you've done in life?
Yes, a big yes. I've never had so many hurdles in my life all happen like in series of each other.
Yeah. I mean, that was my experience, right? I've been through that journey. It was a master's program, but I didn't come from a tech background, and it was like a 1-year boot camp, and I lost 10 pounds. And I was mostly, it was a co-ed course, but I didn't have, they're like my brothers, and I had a couple sisters, but I was much older than everybody else. And so there was some form of alienation there. But I mean, overall, as painful and difficult as it was a transformative experience, 100%. And I think any sort of educational programs are, but I think specifically if you're not coming from a tech background and you push through that, it's really intense. That was my experience. And so it's not hyperbole when I say that I really think it's a transformative experience to learn tech. What were some of the tools you used to get through it, Donna?
Definitely my friends at CodeOp. We did a lot of learning sessions together, and a lot of pair programming, and mostly just keep reading, keep staying curious, and if you don't understand something, investigate it, like figure out like, why does it happen, like what is this trying to tell me, and just Google if you don't understand. If there's an error message, copy and paste it, and then figure out what people are saying, what this thing is telling you, and stay curious and push through it. But mostly my support with my friends at CodeOp were my rock.
Dia, how about you? Did you have the same coping mechanisms?
So for me, first of all, was understanding when to have a pause, because when you are in those moments of I don't know anything, I can't do anything, what am I doing with my life, like you just have to take 5 minutes, and you have to realize when you have to take those 5 minutes, because just with 5 minutes you can I was just panicking, it's just code at the end of the day, so there's no need to start crying, it's fine. So to me, first of all, was like really understand, like giving some limits and to understand when to take a break. Actually, I think that I could have used a little bit more contact with my peers in my cohort. For me, it was very difficult because spending already the whole day in front of the computer, I didn't want to stand on another call with anyone else. Like it was just, okay, enough of this. So for me, that I liked it. But during the day, in general, I think that CodeOp was super cool because I knew that I could reach out to so many people, either the teachers or you yourself. I mean, you were always available, or my peers. Like during the day, during the hours of class, it was amazing. Seriously, sometimes it was difficult being from home, but you don't feel it that much actually. So yeah, it was stressful, and for me, like when you asked if it was the most challenging thing in life, I wouldn't have said the most, but then I thought about actually when you are in a bootcamp, you never not think about code. I was thinking about dreaming about coding. And that for me was like the last straw, like when you just want to rest and you actually dream about code and nothing makes sense because you wake up and it's like, did I at least arrive to a solution or was just dreaming about it? So it's intense, but it's not impossible. I mean, actually, when I finished CodeOp, I received of course, the ads of another bootcamp for, I don't know, cyber security or something like that. And I was actually thinking about it. And then I said, okay, no, maybe 2 bootcamps in 1 year is too much, but I'm still thinking about it for the future, you know? So yes, it's been intense, but you can do it for sure. Like
it feels good, no? Like once you solve that problem, it makes you want more problems.
You know what I really enjoy about coding, actually, that is also a thing that I always answer when they ask it in interviews. It's this feeling of going up and down like on a roller coaster, you know? You can be on a very low level because you can't solve anything for 3 days. And then at some point you realize what was the problem. Then you solve it and you're like, I can do anything. I can do anything. Nothing is impossible. And then in 3 minutes you have another problem and you go down. But when you go up, like that feeling is amazing. And it's what I really like about coding, that at some point you solve it. It could take forever, but then when you solve it, you feel seriously that you can do anything because you solved something that it took you 3 days.
Yeah. I also had that experience. Shannara, can you walk us through like what you learned technically, how it was composed, the bootcamp, just to give people a sense of, you know, what are the technical things that typically you learn. The thing about bootcamps, there's not a lot of differences. If you're looking at full stack development bootcamps, there's not so many differences in the actual stack. I mean, there are some subtle differences, but the market sort of dictates what a bootcamp is going to teach. And so we know like JavaScript is a big one. Certainly you can find bootcamps that are teaching Ruby on Rails, but it's quite standard and it can be opaque when you're not coming from a tech background. So maybe you can just walk us through, Shannara, the logic.
Sure. We started, I think it's called functional programming with some functions. Then we went into a little bit of front end, then a little bit of back end. And then we had my favorite part, the project phase. So which was split into 3. One was your personal project, the MVP that you build on your own, and it's a full stack app. And that's where you consolidate all of your knowledge. And then the second project is when you take someone else's code, one of your peers, you'll have someone else's code, and you just have to add some features to it, which is a great skill as well, because reading someone else's code is a great skill in real life, because you never code alone. And the third project, also my favorite, most favorite probably, is a group project. And so the project phase was my favorite. Besides that, every morning we would solve coding challenges, which I thought was really strategic, because every day, like one challenge in 11 weeks, it makes up to a total of around 40 challenges, which makes you pretty ready to do round 1 of assessments for a lot of companies.
Super. Okay, since you brought it up, you're using some jargon that some of us may not know. So, I mean, if you had to explain to a 5-year-old what front end and back end is, how would you describe it?
Okay, so the front end is what you actually see, but it's not only, you know, the design, but also the fact that a button works. While the backend is the part that of a website, of a web page that you cannot see. So the one that communicates with the server and the data. So that's the main difference. And full stack means that you can do both, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Andrea.
okay.
No. Please.
No.
Andrea, anything to add to that, or would you explain it differently? Any metaphors?
Maybe not exactly about that, but I see a big difference between what we learn about JavaScript and then the other side, that is HTML and CSS. Like it's a very different mindset. So for example, you might not be familiar with, or your mind is not accustomed to working with algorithms, but then you realize that you are really good at understanding how HTML and CSS works, because it's not like a mathematical formula. It's a tool that you can use to make things look good and can be organized. So it's even if you don't have a super science brain, that you're not the best in the world at math, for example, it doesn't really matter. You can do a lot without that. And also then it comes other things like React and Vue that we did, that are frameworks that you can put these skills to work. And that's why it's full stack. You can have a little bit of both, and you can build really nice stuff without needing to be a genius in either design or math. And that's really great, I think.
Super. So you use another jargon, algorithms. I remember Googling this way back when, and I'm like, what is this thing? I hear about it all the time. What is it? What really is it? How would you, Andrea, define an algorithm?
So an algorithm is like the instructions you give to the computer to let it know what you want it to do. And for example, in CSS, you don't need algorithms. In CSS, it's a kind of language that lets you tell the computer how you want things to look. But for example, if you're coding something in JavaScript that doesn't need to be something in design, you can tell JavaScript to put a series of numbers in a certain order. You need to tell the steps that the computer needs to follow to do that. So that's the algorithm, the steps they take to do that.
It's like a recipe, no? So like once you look into all these fancy words, you realize, okay, no problem. But it just takes time, because when you're transitioning into tech, all of a sudden there's all this new language. It's a new world that you're walking into, and that can be daunting. And it takes time to sort of retain the information, be able to recall it, and connect the dots, because there's various systems at work here. Andrea, what was your favorite part of bootcamp?
Emotionally, my peers, that's for sure. That's the best thing ever that I've taken out of it. But technically, maybe the daily challenges. I know that they were hated by some people, but it kept my mind on track. I think that your brain gets used to it, to work every day, to code every day. Like Bea was saying that she was dreaming about it. I think we all dreamt about it. But I think it's a good thing that even if we are working on something on CSS or HTML, that every day we have a little problem to solve. Like your brain stays on this mood, and it carries through even after the bootcamp. I'm still on that mood, like, okay, I want to solve a problem today. So that's really great.
Super. Donna, unlike Bea and, Donna, you were working full-time and also doing a part-time bootcamp. Walk me through a week. How did you manage that?
Lucky for me, it was COVID, and my job is mostly physical, so there wasn't much where I can do remotely, and I just dedicated all my time. But now that we're transitioned back on site, I just have to. The main thing that got me through was time managing, like cashing out, like what time can I honestly dedicate to coding and just focus on coding, and what my rest of the day would look like, as long as I can stick to the schedule. And that's like one thing that I pulled away is to make sure, if you have a lot to juggle, respect your time as if it's work.
How many hours do you think outside of class were you studying?
Extra. I probably didn't really sleep much, to be honest. Probably. So let's say if I was working 8 hours a day and I was spending 6 hours for class time and then like an additional 3 to 4 hours for assignments, I would probably spend an extra 2 to 3 hours just reading up on documentation and searching online, like seeing what I'm learning.
Yeah.
Because there's like when we're learning, we only get the lectures, but there's a lot of concepts that we need to familiarize for ourselves before we can understand what the lecture is.
Yeah. Okay, and just for context, part-time courses often are like twice a week in the evening for 3 hours, 6 hours in total of class time. Okay. Did you understand everything in the boot camp? Donna, I just had you here. I mean, I remember, for example, I had some hard classes during my graduate studies, and there were times in which my goal was just to take away one thing from a lecture. And if I took away one thing, then I was going to be happy because that meant I was learning something. Now, obviously, I would like to learn more. And I knew some of my classmates were understanding. No one was understanding 100% in my cohort. And I can tell you in CodeOp, no one is understanding 100% in a boot camp. You are not becoming experts. You are flirting with a lot of concepts. And ultimately, it takes residency in the field to really learn these things. But you have enough knowledge to be building things and to start working. So, I mean, Donna, I'm sure it differed throughout lecture phase, but like on average, how much do you think you were understanding during the program?
Out of 100%, maybe if I'm lucky, 30%. Mm-hmm. That's more realistic, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a lot of material being thrown at you. There's no way you're gonna absorb everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Our minds are not buckets. Okay. Super. I'm looking at some of my notes. Okay, yeah. So one of the questions was about learning remotely. Bea, you had talked about this a bit, but sometimes there was assumptions about learning remotely, and I think all of our associations to remote has changed radically following COVID. Shanara, but you were interested at CodeOp at a time in which we were solely in person. You ended up doing the remote program. Can you talk about what some of your expectations were about doing it remotely?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, since I don't reside in Spain or Europe, I was saving on living costs. And that was appealing. Also, the remote program was a little cheaper than the offline one as well, the tuition cost. As for the expectations, as long as the class size was small, like, less than 10, I knew it would be fine. And I wasn't sure to what extent I could become friends with my peers. That was my fear, because usually for me as well, from my undergrad and grad school, the best part is your friends that you make. But it wasn't, as you said, throughout the pandemic, we've all adjusted pretty well. And a bonus for me was that in a remote setting, I also worked while I was studying, and I was doing a full-time boot camp, but my job was like 3 to 4 hours a day, and it didn't have to be 8 to 12. It could be any time throughout the day. So for me, that was great. I could do both, and I didn't spend time on commuting. Or going and getting lunch or small talk. It was very efficient. So I thought, if anyone in the future wants to do the full-time bootcamp and maybe a part-time job, I think it's pretty possible if you manage your time well. Yeah.
You see, we don't tell them what to say because typically we advise against that, but you did an excellent job at that. What can you say something about what the remote experience was when you were actually learning, like the tools that you used and how you talked with your peers and how were the lectures done, etc.?
Yeah, obviously we use Zoom and Slack for communicating. And yeah, I think one of the sessions we had when we used VS Code to code, they had the live, you could share your VS Code and code as a team. So that was pretty helpful because it felt like we were all gathered around one screen and telling one person to type. Yeah.
Did you feel that because it was remote that the transmission of knowledge might be compromised?
I do think, especially at the beginning, people are more afraid to reach out to someone else. Because again, you're strangers, you're still strangers, you don't want to bother them, but and it takes time to break the ice. But in a real life setting, it takes 5 minutes to break the ice. Like you just say hi and like you talk about something and you're friends. Yeah. So that was, I could feel that some of us might feel isolated or alone because we're alone physically, we're not together. But I'm glad CodeOp did the pair programming pretty soon, very early on. So that helped us to, while we were pair programming, of course, we had small talk and like we became friends. And from then on, we didn't feel shy to reach out because it actually like it bonds you when you struggle together. It really bonds you. Yeah.
Totally. So you talked about project phase being one of your favorite things about the experience. Can you share with us what some of your projects were?
Sure. My MVP project was a carbon footprint questionnaire. So across four areas of your life, like clothing, food, transport, travel. And I also wanted to do the calculator. I didn't get to the integration of the API, but I still think it was a hard project. Later on, after the bootcamp, when I Googled some project ideas to keep coding, surveys, which I did, was actually advanced level. So I was like, oh, wow, I actually did this already on my MVP. And the second feature extension project, we all did authentication. We added authentication to each other's projects. And the third project, the group one, my favorite, was basically a charity finder, a global charity finder. So you search for it, you can add a favorite charity to your dashboard, and you can donate to it. Yeah.
Super. What technologies did you use for that project?
We used React, Node, Express, and Sequelize. Yeah.
Okay. And did you deploy it?
Yeah, we deployed it in Heroku as well.
So deployment means that they took the app and they launch it and people can access it. Is it still accessible?
I think that the Heroku we did was the paid one, so I have to ask Rosini because she paid for it. It was like $6, but you know, as time goes by, it accumulates. So I have to ask her. Okay. But we all did record our projects on Loom. Right. So even if it's not live, you still have a Loom video to demo what you did.
Super. Bea, what were your projects?
So the first one was a sort of application to rent someone else's dog. Because, you know, I can't have a dog because my apartment is too small and you want to live for the weekend, so I can just rent your dog. It's an ugly verb, but, you know, that was the thing. Then the second one, I actually really enjoyed the second project, and I don't think that other bootcamps do that, to work on someone else's code. It's actually what then you do in your daily working life. So for me, that was seriously something super cool about CodeOp that gave us 3 projects, and one was working with someone else. And actually, for this reason, this was my favorite. And the idea was a social network that would connect people changing country or city to people from their own community, or bars or whatever. Or like, for example, I'm Italian and live in Barcelona. I definitely look for Italian supermarkets, for example. So things like that. and yeah, since during the second project, they would have explained the authentication. So I added authentication to that project. And the last one that also is super cool, and actually the dynamics that we had in the group project were the same that I live now at my work, because it was an international team working remotely. It's exactly what is happening right now in my life. So that's another, like, also a life experience, not only a working experience. And we created an application where you can actually save all the resources that you find online, because usually you just save them as bookmarks and whatever, and then you never go back to them. So our idea was to save them, dividing them in different categories and subcategories, and then having a reminder every now and then, like, hey, you haven't been looking at this for 3 months. So that was the idea, and we deployed it too.
Can we access it still?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
I'm not sure, I have to check, but I think so.
Okay, maybe we can share the link so people can get a taste of that. Okay, super. So let's start transitioning into post-bootcamp reality, right? So you've just been studying for 11 weeks full-time or 6 months part-time. Did everyone feel ready to get a job in tech? Did you feel like you had the skills? And what were your expectations around this, Andrea?
Well, I'd rather do a second bootcamp than get into the job search again, honestly. For me, it's the worst thing to. It took a lot of effort to build my online presence, to build a CV, starting to build a nice LinkedIn that people don't run away from. And I didn't feel ready because I started to looking at other people's LinkedIns or portfolios. I didn't have a portfolio. I just had the projects we did in class, which is plenty because it took a lot of effort, but there's a lot of good people out there. So I always felt like I was behind. Like if I can do one more course on something, maybe I'll get a better resume if I can do this, if I can do that. But I took your advice. I think it was you, Katrina, on a talk you did to us, that you said, don't wait, just start. Things will come. You can work on your portfolio and your things while you look for a job, and you don't know when the right opportunity is gonna come, so don't wait. And that was a really good advice that I'm so glad I took.
Super. We'll get into, in the end, how that all panned out. But let's stay on this question of what your expectations were right after the boot camp, after graduating.
So I was afraid that I wasn't gonna get a job after
Sure.
seeing how the market was. So
Yeah.
I didn't really have expectations. I expected to be months and months and months looking for work, and then to get no interviews and hundreds of rejections. And I did get hundreds of rejections, but also more interviews than I expected. I got a handful. So that was a surprise, and don't expect the worst. Also not to be like people are not going to fight for you just after a bootcamp, but you're not also going to be overlooked.
Sure. Shannara, what was your experience with that?
So I graduated in November and I landed a job recently in June, because as I said, I still had my other job. I was comfortable, but also it was December, end of the year, Christmas time. People were kind of busy. I just wanted to end the year already. So yeah, but in January, what really helped me was we had a few video calls with my FS10 group and my classmates, and we were all sharing, and it was nice to hear that some of them were on their way to land a job, and we all made an observation that there definitely were more job postings. So it seemed like the economy was recovering from the pandemic. That was great news. And I also, like Andrea, I had a lot of rejections. I started filling out that Google Sheet with all the companies that I applied for. But then at some point, my speed of applying became so fast that I didn't even have time to put them down in the list. I was like, it's okay. Yeah, it was a lot of companies. And then I thought, for me also, the harder problem was the work permit. Not everyone was willing to sponsor. It was also still COVID. No one wants to deal with the bureaucracy. So I just thought, maybe it's not possible for the time being, just because of the legal issues. So I'll focus on my job, and my knowledge was still useful. Like I was a better project manager. I could tell when my developers, would bullshit me. Like I would say, come on, this endpoint doesn't take that long. Like I know how to do this. Like if you want me, I can actually do this. So yeah, I didn't feel like it was a waste at all. And it did take longer. Now that I actually started a job, I do think it was a little too long, because it's kind of harder to code again after you don't code. Even for 1 month, some of my classmates are saying it was really hard, but for 6 months, it's even harder. But luckily, it all comes back pretty fast, because you put in the hours every day. And this is thankful to CodeOp for helping me. Both of the part-time jobs that I have right now are through CodeOp, because and they didn't care about work permits, so that was super nice. And it was I could sense how different the journey was for me. when I was on my own applying blindly, let's say, and now when I was actually referred by CodeUp, even the interviews weren't as strict. Like they didn't even like. Of course, there was like they wanted to see the fit, the culture fit. They did look at my portfolio, but the fact that they trust CodeUp really helped me because as a junior, everyone knows it's really hard. Well, everyone asks for junior developers to have 3 years of experience, but where do you get that experience if you're a junior? So that was, yeah, I think, I mean, the great examples for me are Samantha and Razan in my cohort. Razan started working with Germinal in like one of her part-time jobs as well. And both of them were working at where I'm working right now at UFMD. So their reputation, they did so well that they wanted to continue. And yeah, it really matters. Like if you were actually referred by CodeOp, you should, I mean, I'm sure we'll do well, but you doing well also affects future generations of alumni. Yeah.
So since we're here, who is Germinal and what is EUFMD?
Sure, Germinal is our instructor. He has a contagious passion for coding. And he's the reason I kept going as well, besides my peers. And yeah, he's just an extraordinary instructor. I'm so happy we have him. And UFMD is an independent commission of food and agriculture organization in UN, under UN. Yeah. So yeah, they work with veterinarians. And I'm working particularly on a learning management system for these veterinarians. Yeah.
Super. And you said you had another part-time job. Do you want to mention that?
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know if you all believe in horoscope and stuff, but I am a Libra, so I can be indecisive. And right now I'm sitting on 2 chairs. One is a full stack developer and the other one is product management. So at some point when I was applying for jobs, I thought maybe product management is easier for me to get into because I did project management. And I started looking into it and I studied business as well. So it really all comes together pretty well. And it actually, for 6 months, I was getting a lot of rejections, but then in June, I got 2 offers at the same time. And I couldn't say no because both of them were so lucrative. But the product management one is an internship, and it's also for 3 months. And the first contract with UFMD is also 3 months. So they're giving me it's like perfect for me. I'm not ready to commit to being a developer yet or a product manager. So in October, I'm gonna decide which path I'm gonna take. And I'm very grateful. The product management one is at Smiletronics. It's an AI dentistry startup based in Barcelona. So they will have 2 products, but one of them is you take pictures of your teeth and AI will analyze and tell you what your health score is. And in the future, they'll also have a device that will help you, that will also provide more accurate information to the AI on your dental health. Yeah.
Super cool project. Bea, I don't think you had a CodeOp intro to your current employer. So tell us a little bit about your process.
Okay, so first of all, actually, I want to mention that my favorite part, I'm sorry if I say this because maybe it sounds like it's a coding bootcamp, but my favorite part for me was the last part. So focusing on career development and on curriculum and also the interviews. Like I think that the space that CodeOp gave to that kind of preparation, for me was necessary because I wouldn't know where to start, and it really helped me. And also the fact that after a month I had an interview with Anna Marie that would help me trying to understand what I was doing right or wrong. For me, it was really like the most important thing. So I'm very grateful.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that because we didn't talk about that. And this has, I mean, often code bootcamps have some sort of career week. And I think it's a particularly important week for folks who want to transition into tech. So certainly check that when you're considering bootcamps. And just as a benchmark, can you get into like some of the different activities that you did during Career Week?
Sure. So we had this girl, I don't know where she was from. She was in HR, and she explained us how to actually use LinkedIn. And actually, like that was, I think, the first session of the week, and I went there like, oh, the usual person talking about LinkedIn and how to use it at the best. And actually, it was super interesting. I mean, it wasn't the first time that I heard things about LinkedIn, but she actually explained it as a recruiter. So, okay, I actually look at this, this, and this when I look at your page. So please put this, this, and this. You know, don't focus on this area because we don't look at it. You know, it's important. Then there was Anne-Marie, that it's how do you say, it's a counselor? No, I don't know how.
Yeah, she's our career coach. And what's cool about her is that she worked as an engineer for a long time, and then was an engineering manager at ThoughtWorks, and decided that she wanted to transition her career into supporting folks like yourself.
And actually, the work with her started even earlier, like during the project phase. So we already started talking to her like what we wanted to do after the bootcamp, etc. And with her, we actually had a any technical interview. And the thing that was super nice was the feedback at the end. Like at every step in this week, there was always a feedback. You took your time to revise our CVs 3 times if necessary. And I mean, that one is also super useful because, I mean, I don't know, like my biggest fear was that I had looked for a job for 9 months before the, 6 months before the bootcamp. So, okay, like everyone around May, everyone would tell me, oh, but you've been looking for a job for just 1 month. And for me, it was like, no, it's actually almost a year for me. So that was my biggest fear. And the fact that now I have a job and it took me like 2 months and a little bit more to find it, I definitely think that it's because you revised my curriculum. Someone else told me what to say during an interview. I mean, every part of it was very helpful.
Super. So, I mean, was your expectation that it would be easier once you started looking?
It was what everyone would say, but my fear was bigger than the confidence, actually. But then, well, coming from digital marketing, that, as I mentioned here, like the competition is huge. I saw that actually I would receive more answers, even rejections. But in digital marketing, it's something that you just don't get. Like they just ignore you. So even receiving rejections for me was a new experience, and it was amazing. Like, oh wow, in this field they actually respect you enough to tell you no, thank you. It's something I wasn't used to, and it wasn't easy because, I mean, I've sent more than 100 curriculums in less than 2 months. And also some processes were way too long for me. I mean, and it's something about the tech field. I mean, at some point I had done 4 steps for a process, and I still had to do 3 more. And then at some point they just tell you, no, thank you. So.
Wow. Tell us about can you tell us about the hiring process? I mean, from the very beginning, what are the steps, and also sort of what your strategy, I mean, from sending a CV out, where did you do it? And then if you got a call back, what was the order of operations?
Sure. So first of all, I had this boost from CodeOp to send a CV, even if I didn't feel that the position fit me. It doesn't matter, just send it. Okay, so I would do that.
We like to bully our students.
So I still gave me some rules, you know. So I would send a CV for a position that would ask up to 2 years of experience. More than that, I told myself, like, no. but up to 2 years, I would send it. And I mean, I also had a few interviews with people that would look for that kind of experience. So yeah, at some point I realized that I would actually have to focus more on front end, because in the back end, if they're looking only for a back end programmer, they would look for Java or for different languages that I don't know. So at some point it was just natural to me to look more for front end or full stack. Just back end, it seemed kind of difficult for me, because it's either Node or no, like all the languages are different. So that was it. And actually, right now, I don't know, like, I don't know what happened, like why I have a job. Still can't believe it. I know. Also, my therapist said that.
I know why you have the job.
No, but the thing is that I actually applied for a junior position. And the thing is that actually the HR recruiter was super honest with me, and she told me, look, you're super nice, your curriculum is fine, but actually there are people with more experience than you that applied to this junior position, so you can't compete with them. But if you want, we have also some internships. So, and I mean, she gave me a couple of details, and I said, okay, I mean, I can try with that. If it's the only option to enter in Eventbrite, I can start with a 3-month internship. I mean, it's just 3 months. So yeah, let's say that I show flexibility, because in the next step, usually it's the first call with the HR. Then there is the shortest part is then there is a technical interview, and then there is an interview with someone from the team. It can be that there are other different kind of interviews. I mean, I also had to do for another process, I had to do an intelligence test. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I felt more comfortable with that than a technical interview. So yeah, then in another interview, they told me that what I liked was like, it was strange for me because they were super honest. Like she told me, look, there are a lot of front end that are applying to these internships. So are you comfortable with backend? And I told her, look, only backend, maybe no, but full stack, why not? So like, I really enjoyed that she was honest to me and wouldn't just discard me. And I think that's the reason why I'm here, because she was so honest that I could actually show some flexibility, and then I entered as a full stack. So let's see how it goes. But and actually also I actually landed where I wanted to land. So I come from a small company, a Spanish company, from a family, and I didn't want to have anything to do with that anymore. I wanted to land somewhere that was big, that had I wanted to be in a team where we were more than 2. So I actually landed in a big company where they actually structured. So that's super nice, actually. I'm very grateful for that. And actually, the backend is in Python, and I told, like, in every interview, I was like, I don't know Python. I can learn it, but I don't know it. And they were like, oh, sure, you can learn it. Don't worry. So I think that in a bigger company, this is easier to say than in a smaller company, for example. So I would suggest to just throw curriculums at bigger companies.
that's the insight that you've derived from the experience. I remember, so I come from nonprofit world, working since college as a caseworker for Planned Parenthood, nonprofit to nonprofit. I wasn't involved in tech, and then once I studied data science, I had my first big fancy corporate experience, and you're looking at the walls and how nice everything is, and you feel, and it's a cool experience to have. Now I found out later that that space is not for me, and then I went to launch CodeOp. But it's nice to sort of have awareness into the different types of companies out there. Super. And Bea, just to conclude, I mean, so you're on this team and you feel welcomed, you feel supported.
Yeah, definitely. for sure. And can I point something out actually that actually no one here still mentioned? Like I have an imposter syndrome that is as big as I am. And it's something that actually when you study with women, when you work with women, you realize that it's something that we all have. And I really tried to ignore it during this whole process, during the bootcamp, but also during looking for a job. And Anna Marie, this is very good. Like she's very good in telling you to ignore this feeling. It's still there because the first day at Eventbrite, they explained us the company, and I was there like, will I be able to stay here after the internship? Like this seems also cool. Am I cool enough to stay here? Sometimes it's just difficult to shut up those voices, but when you do shut up, when you can just shush them, then you find a job and then you grow. So that's amazing. Actually, it's difficult, but it's worth it.
Yeah, good advice. Andrea, so what was the interview process like for you, and where did it eventually lead?
Well, I got into several interview processes. When I accepted this offer that I got recently, I haven't even started at the job yet, but I signed the offer. So in the middle of this, I was still in the middle of another 3 interview processes that I couldn't finish because they are so long. But I have to say that out of the 3 interview processes that I finished, from 2 of them I got an offer. And I also wanted to point something out, that now this offer I took is as a full stack developer, but I got 2 other offers that reached out to me. Like I didn't even have to put a CV on, but they were not developer offers. So it's not the only way out of the bootcamp. It's not the only thing you can do. Like these ones that they found me, recruiters found me, they were about tech support. It's also a thing that's out there. I didn't even consider it because I didn't know it was an option, but it's a role that I think a lot of companies are looking for, like people that know how to code but are not full developers, and they reach out to you. So it's not like a dead end that you can only work as a full stack developer and nothing else. So I thought that was interesting to mention because no one ever told me that.
Can I just interject real quickly? This comes up a lot, no? Like, what are my options if I learn this? And certainly, while it's common to become a junior full stack engineer after a full stack development bootcamp, there's other paths. And some of that is around tech support. We've seen people get into technical writing following our bootcamp. We've seen people go into UX, product management, developer advocacy. Actually, I've seen with one student, a data analyst, in fact. So we're going to talk more about that in our next event. Actually, it's next week. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. So I interrupted you, Andrea. So you got multiple offers, which is fantastic.
It's more than I ever expected. I expected none, and suddenly I got 2. So that's, and I have to say the offer that I took up, it's not even, like on the bootcamp we worked on JavaScript, React, and Vue. The offer that I took is Java and Angular. So they were fine with it. Like they are aware that you can code because you got through a bootcamp, and they told me, okay, this is what we work with. And I said, okay, I have no idea about how this works, but I'm gonna learn. They said, of course, you'll do the ramp up and you'll learn. Super. As all developers do. So that's they know that you're just out of a bootcamp if a company is interested. The offers that I got, they were very aware that even if we don't know some stuff, we're gonna learn it.
Exactly. You said that you got a lot of traction when you were applying. What methods were you using to apply?
Well, I got into LinkedIn and I applied to everything that seemed remotely possible. And I got this little folder where I put all my rejections. And I got so many. So that I don't know, I expected to get more discouraged. I had my days. But as Bea said, the fact that they even reply with a no, it's unheard of. I've never had that before in my life. And so I started applying, but it's really important also to make connections during the bootcamp. One of the interview processes I got in was through a referral of a peer that I made in CodeOp. So that those are doors that you can open for yourself and opportunities. But most of it, I think it's being lucky to apply to the right offer at the right time. And maybe that the best way to get there is applying a lot so you can get that right offer.
Super. It can be discouraging. I mean, rejection is never a cool thing. I experienced that as a founder and trying to fundraise. We know like women got 4% of all VC funds last year. And so, you know, you put yourself out there, you've worked hard, and all of a sudden you feel like you're on Tinder dating and no one wants to know, but that's the nature of the game. And then all of a sudden you get used to hearing no's, and it's not a big deal, and it doesn't touch your heart or your soul. You know, once you start hearing no, there's so many different factors that can come into it. What do you have any tips for people, you know, once they get to that point and they're applying for jobs and they're inevitably getting rejections? What were some of the coping mechanisms?
It depends a lot on your situation, because I personally I had a job. I have a full-time job right now, and I'm waiting to transition to this new job. But I cannot speak for people that really need to jump on a job right away. I had a bit of a cushion, a place where that I was comfortable just applying until the right opportunity comes up. But I really I think it's important that they reply saying no. That tells me a lot about the industry and that they value the work. They care enough to say no. So the ones that say it yes, actually one of the interview process that I got to the end and they rejected me, I emailed them back saying why, did everything go okay? Can I improve something? And they said that everything is fine, just keep trying. There's people more experienced than you. And as the more interviews you do and the more things you code that you put on your GitHub or your portfolio, the more chances you get. And that's been the truth. Like that, the more I got out, the more offers came. So yeah.
Super. Bea, you got rejections. How did you cope with that? Did they ruin your days?
Yeah, like I can subscribe everything that Andrea said. Also, I mentioned that I came from a lot of months looking for a job. So for me, it was no news. What I really enjoyed is actually, well, most of them are just an automatic answer. But some of them actually took the time to say, hey, no, we want to go further with your profile. Actually, you know things. Actually, your technical assessment was okay. There were just people that were better. So, you know, actually, also the kind of rejection makes the difference, you know, because if you take the time to actually take care of me and say, hey, no, you actually did good. It just, you can't compete with it. And the rest of the people, it's just different for me. You know, it's not just a no. It's an okay, maybe try later. So yeah, it's definitely the industry for sure. For me, like I can see the difference. It can be hard. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't have my bad days looking for a job, but you know, yeah, I didn't expect to actually find a job this fast, because at the end of the day, I started working 3 months after the bootcamp. So I'm still surprised. But yeah, it's just sending CVs, realizing that as you learn at CodeOp, you can actually apply to things that seem impossible to you, but it's just fine. And I actually, when I think about it now, I think that I didn't send a lot of curriculum that I could have sent, and I sent a lot. So just send them, and that's because the more you send, the more answers you get, for sure.
That's a strategy that I'm told by my women founder mentors. No, that this is, you have a funnel, you know, and you need to generate leads if you're looking for fundraising in a startup world, and you'll get many no's, but you only need a couple of yeses to close the round. So many parallels to draw from our boot camps and having a startup, to be honest. And I love talking about this. We'll do an event about it sometime. Okay, so it's 7:58. Any words of wisdom to impart to our audience tonight? Advice for them, all those folks who are considering transitioning to tech?
I have one, if I may.
Yes.
It might not be that important, but it's something that I've regretted. If you can and have the time during the bootcamp, if you do it, deploy your apps, because we only deployed one, and now I think I would have gotten somewhere faster if I had deployed all three. And after the bootcamp, I got caught up in life and I couldn't really do it. But it's my biggest regret. So if you can take something out of that, there you go.
Very practical advice. I like it. Shanara?
I just think don't take 2 years like I did. I wish I had done it sooner. So yeah, if you are still contemplating, just think of yourself in a few years, and once you do it, you'll be like me. Hey, I wish I would have done it sooner. Like, I don't know what was taking me this long.
I share that sentiment. So no regrets, Shanara. No regrets aside from maybe doing it a little bit sooner. Bea, any words of wisdom?
For me would be, yes, to do it, be aware that it's not all fun and games, but that it's worth it. It's worth it, even if you are there crying, even if you're there saying that, oh, why everyone is asking super interesting question and I didn't even get the class, so how's that? At the end of the day, it's really worth it, even if maybe you just at the end don't transition into the field, but it really is a new mindset, so it will always come useful at some point in your life. Just do it, seriously.
It's really funny because we put a video together of our alumni, and we asked this question. We wanted to capture it on video, and what we realized, everyone was saying the same thing, and that was, just do it, don't think about it, shut the voices up in your head and just go after it. You won't regret it. And I think that there's some truth there. I know that I had to basically replace my own voice, which was not really my voice. But anyway, the voices in my head with the voices of my friends and my community saying, you can do this. And that's what it really took. So that's it. I want to share with you a couple things. First, I'm sharing it in the chat. This is a really interesting report done by McKinsey and Pivotal Ventures about the field and what companies are doing to try to get more women into tech. So here you can educate yourself about the industry. It's US centric, unfortunately, that often it's the case. I realized that once I moved to Europe and was trying to understand European market trends. The second thing I want to share with you is my LinkedIn profile. Certainly feel free, someone had asked privately, feel free to reach out at any point. Let me find myself. Okay, here I am. I'm sharing this now. And the third thing, I can't say mod. Well, okay. So the third thing is that we have this. We're trying to be very intentional with the events that we create, and so we don't want to just leave you hanging here. We thought like a really good next step, if you're interested in this, is to meet Anne-Marie, our career coach, and to talk to her to learn about the field. And so that's happening next week. You can find it on Eventbrite. I think we'll also share the links with you later, or they were just shared right now. And also, please stay tuned. We have a really cool partnership coming up in the future. I can't say much about it, but keep an eye out because there's cool opportunities on the horizon for folks who are looking to transition into tech. Yeah, so many thanks to Andrea, Shanara, Bea, and Donna, who had to leave early. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with folks who were in your shoes, who are in your shoes. And that's it.
Thank you very much to CodeOp.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for organizing. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.